the 2024 budget of the Nigeria Federation? Well, the budget has been read and signed into law. However, there are 10 ministries that will get the major allocation of the 2024 budget, which was tagged Budget of Hope Renewal. Budget allocation of 28.7 trillion naira. It was initially 27.5 trillion before National Assembly members added 1.2 trillion naira to it, making the figure 28.7 trillion naira. These ministries include the Ministry of Finance, which will get the highest allocation of the budget, which is 9.33 trillion naira. The second is the Budget Ministry, which will get 4.45 trillion naira, followed by the Defense Ministry, which is the third, which has 1.858 trillion naira, and the fourth, which is Education Ministry, which gets 1.44 trillion naira. Health Ministry gets 1.23 trillion naira. Police Affairs gets 9.33 billion naira. While the Minister of Works gets, while the Works Ministry gets 657.23 billion naira. Interior Ministry gets 461.99 billion naira. Agriculture gets 362.95 billion naira. While the Niger Delta, the 10th on the list, gets 346.12 billion naira. This is the slight breakdown of the 2024 budget tagged Budget of Hope Renewal. Although many Nigerians express different views about the budget, with many criticizing the figure of the budget, while few support it, the Minister of Budget also came out to defend it. But in his defense, the only thing that gets my attention there was that the 2024 budget has a lower deficit than that of 2023, as if it's something to celebrate. Because this nation needs to do away with budget deficit entirely. Because the country's debt profile is worrisome. Yes. Well, I'm not here to criticize the amount of the budget, but to say what I feel is needed to say. Every year, the governments present their budget. They will contain a very large amount of money, and they will target with any name that gives you Nigerians hope that the said budget is going to turn things around positively. But it never did. Instead, things become worse. And we blame the president for this, forgetting the ministries that this money was allocated to, forgetting the ministers in charge of these ministries. Nigerians has not felt the impact of any budget for once, because the budget was poorly executed by ministers in charge of those ministries the money is being allocated to. It's time we direct our anger towards the ministers piloting the affairs of the nation with the president. I took little time to study how these 10 ministries distribute the funds allocated to them, and I found out that only Ministry of Finance, being headed by Mr. Wale Edun, and the Ministry of Works, being headed by Engineer Dave Omai, former governor of Ebony State, allocated the major funds from their allocation to capital and overhead expenses. The rest allocated the major funds to personnel expenses, while the lower figure goes to capital. and overhead expenses, which I feel doesn't go well. So I urge them to follow the footsteps of the Finance and Work Minister by putting more on capital and overhead expenses for a better output of the money allocated to them. Another content of the budget that got me is the amount of money allocated for the President and Vice President's foreign and local trips. The figures are 7.6 billion naira and 1.2 billion naira respectively. What about the one allocated for the renovation of the office and residence of the Chief of Staff to the President, which is 10 billion naira? I don't want to talk about the amount allocated to the State House and others. But my question is, if they can allocate this much amount of money to themselves, why can't they pay 100 or 200,000 naira minimum wage to civil servants? I'm not against them though. They are enjoying their time. But I want them to know that while living very large from the country's revenue, they should also remember that there is so much suffering in this nation, as more than 70% of Nigerian citizens lack access to good life. Hence, the need to think of a better way to reduce the suffering and improve the living condition of Nigerians. From the man who wants a better Nigeria.